Track of the Day is the only route planner in the world that uses a full-fledged local SQL database. As a result, new users who have never used a SQL database before are often confused and don't know what to do with it. What is so cool about the local database and how it can speed up research and route planning in the long term is explained in this video. The first video of the new version 6.0 shows how to install the Microsoft SQL Server LocalDB, so in this video we will focus on the functionality of the SQL database. The SQL database of Track of the Day can be understood as an archive in which hundreds or even thousands of tracks, routes and POIs can be stored. At application launch, these tracks and routes are available, but they are not opened immediately, which greatly speeds up the application launch. Once you have completed the planning of a route, you should therefore store it in the database. As soon as you turn to new planning tasks, it makes sense to move ready planned routes to the archive, so to speak. This makes it easier to keep track of things and speeds up the next start of the application. Let's start with some basics. SQL Server is a Windows service. The most important feature of Windows services is that they start up automatically when the computer starts. All available services can be configured, started and stopped via the Windows control panel. These services are, in a sense, the heart of every Windows computer. Without these services, Windows can do almost nothing. The SQL Server uses a database named master. This is where database users are managed and where other databases are registered. That's why you can't just copy the Track of the Day database to another computer. Even if a SQL Server is installed there, the copied database is not registered in the master database and cannot be accessed. In order to exchange data between several private computers, there are functions for the export and import of all tracks, routes and POIs that are managed in Track of the Day. How this works will be explained in a later video. Let's dig deeper. The TD database is an archive system for tracks, routes and POIs. Here you can store everything you have collected over the years. There is no predefined size limit. The capacity of a SQL Server database is essentially limited by the available disk space. SQL databases are designed to manage many millions of records quickly and efficiently. You could say that they are like a gigantic high bay warehouse where you put everything where there is just enough space. In order to find something in this camp later, there is the structured query language, the so-called structured query language, which is usually simply called SQL. Track of the Day uses a lot of SQL queries, but as a user you don't notice any of them. For example, If you are looking for mountain passes in the Alps, select the map section in which you want to search and select one or more POI types and POI categories. Track of the day creates a database query from this and displays the result that the SQL Server has delivered. It works the same way with tracks and routes. You don't have to know what a route is called, you just need to know where it starts. For example, if you want to open all routes in the south of Sardinia, focus the map on this area and select Find Routes in the Map section from the context menu. If more than 10 routes are found, you will be asked if you really want to open them all. In the same way, you can also find tracks in the database, so you don't have to remember names, just the approximate region. All tracks, routes and POIs can be tagged with one or more keywords, the so-called hashtags. This further simplifies the process of finding items in the local database. How exactly it works will also be explained in a later video. Now let's take a closer look at the database view. At the top left we find tabs for displaying tracks, routes and POIs. Right next to it is a filter that can be used for very large datasets. This allows you to display the newest or oldest 10, 100, or 1000 items. In the search field, you can enter any search terms. A few examples show how this works. To the right of the search field, you can expand and select the list of the 10 most recently used search terms. If you click on the icon with the two semicircular arrows, the database view will be updated. This can be useful after importing tracks, routes or POIs. The button with the filter symbol searches for elements in the selected category that fit into the current map section. If you click on the button with the rectangle and the arrow, the selected tracks or routes will be opened. Selected POIs are thus displayed on the map. By clicking on the button with the pencil symbol, a selected POI can be changed. Selected routes can be automatically converted into tracks and opened. Conversely, you can also open tracks as routes. Using the button with the star symbol, you can give all database elements a personal ranking between 0 and 5 stars. If you click on the red garbage can, the selected element will be permanently deleted. The button with the circle and the hash changes to the Smart Folder view. Here, all database elements are displayed on the basis of hashtags. This view is very suitable for opening all tracks, routes and POIs of a region or a trip with one click, for example. How the smart folders work in detail will also be explained in a later video. To undock the database view and display it on a second display, click on the icon with the computer. Clicking on the button with the X closes the database view. Now let's move on to the functions that are possible within the database view. We'll start with the tracks category. If you click here with the right mouse button, the current track can be renamed. For routes and POIs, renaming works in the same way. The Manage Hashtags menu opens a dialog where you can assign, create, rename or delete hashtags. You can change only the selected elements or all elements of the current category. If the checkbox consideration of all tracks, routes, POIs and database entries is checked, all elements will be changed. This function is reserved for a few special cases, because it can be used to turn all hashtags upside down if used carelessly. So caution is required here. The Upload to Cloud menu sends the selected tracks or routes to the Track of the Day cloud services. This makes it easy to download individual tracks and routes to another private computer. The Context menu also allows you to export the selected item or all elements of the current category. Analogously, an import is also possible. This function can be used for data backup or synchronization with other private computers. It should be noted that all tracks and routes are exported in the native format of Track of the Day. It will therefore not be possible to use such exported routes on most navigation devices. For this purpose, there is a separate route export, which will be explained in a later video. Last but not least, in the Context menu you will also find functions to delete the selected elements or all elements of the active category. The database category POIs also contains functions to clean up POIs or to identify missing address data. The POI type and category can also be changed here. Many users keep asking how to back up and restore the contents of the database. I would now like to briefly show how this works. First, I insert a blank memory card into the card reader built into my computer's docking station. In Windows Explorer, this SD card will now appear as the E:\drive. Now let's open the application settings and configure this drive as the destination for the sync data feature. We close the application settings and start the Export All function via the context menu of the corresponding button in the main menu. The export is now starting. All open tracks, routes and POIs visible on the map are now exported to the memory card. Then, in turn, all tracks, routes and POIs are imported from the database and exported to the memory card. We can check the result of this export using Windows File Explorer. We now connect the SD card to a Microsoft Surface Pro 8 with a card reader. After that, we start track of the day and set the path for synchronization with other computers in the application settings. There is only one demo route from one of the last tutorials on this surface. In addition, there are a few POIs. We could delete this data, but we can also simply add all the data from the memory card. Now let's start the import from the SD card with the Import External Data function. After a while, all the tracks and routes on the surface will be available exactly as we saw them on the other computer. Finally, we will show how to import many tracks and routes into the database very quickly. To do this, we'll reset the database on your surface. All tracks, routes and POIs are now deleted. We then drag and drop the tracks and routes from the memory card to the database view. The contents of all GPX files are now imported in sequence and are available after a short time. That brings me to the end of this video. If you liked it, I would appreciate a thumbs up or a comment. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.